Welcome to Choice Cuts. I'm Ryan Turek, the managing editor of ShockTillYouDrop.com. Now this month, Fox releases Devil's Due from the filmmaking team known as Radio Silence. Now, Radio Silence got their start on the independent scene, and this month they make their big studio splash. So I wanted to bring on two panelists to discuss the state of independent horror. And with me,
I'm Brian Collins. I write for Badass Digest and Horror Movie A Day.
I'm Mickey Keating. I'm the writer and director of Ritual. Out now.
Yeah, out now. Now, Mickey, I brought you on because, one, you're young, you're hungry, you're an independent filmmaker, and obviously Ritual arrived on DVD from Lionsgate Home Entertainment and After Dark Films.
It did.
And when you look at a film, it's legitimately indie. You guys found the money, you raised it, you made the movie on independent means. No one else helped you, and then you had to go out and find distribution. So I just wanted to clarify that's why we've got you on, because I think that we need that voice. We need your voice.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, guys, let's talk about, whenever I write articles about, the best in horror or just Hollywood horror in general, one of the common complaints is you guys aren't covering enough independent horror movies. Independent horror is where it's at. Screw Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. And I look at it as, no, everybody's on the same playing field. Independent horror has just as many problems as Hollywood horror does, and Hollywood horror has as many problems as independent horror does. Because when you look at it, for me, it's about quality. It's about the quality of the story, the quality of the characters. Do you guys differentiate that way when you look at stuff? I mean, is it all just, it's horror? Horror is horror.
Yeah, I mean, when I was reviewing, doing Horror Movie A Day, and I'd get like the comment, I'd write a bad review of an indie movie, like, oh, come on, they only had like $200,000. Like, well, that, you can still write a good script for $200,000,
Yeah.
you know? And I'd always just name check movies that had, Blair Witch only had 40,000 or whatever it was, Paranormal Activity only had 30,000, whatever.
Yeah, did you feel, like doing Ritual, did you feel anything related to the technical side of things or even the budget affect your script and the delivery of your characters and the delivery of your story?
Yeah, I mean, well, with Ritual, I think it was most important, first and foremost, to make a movie that was within the confines of our budget. So I guess in that regard, I was a little bit more aware of, being an independent filmmaker as opposed to, going and pitching this movie to a studio and having a whole bunch of, different opinions and knowing where my money's coming from. So in that regard, I guess what it comes down to really is just, you're right, the story and the delivery of actual scares and effects. And there are good independent horror films, and there are very shitty independent horror films, and there are great studio horror movies. And I've seen a lot of bad ones too. So I just think what it comes down to is, whether you're effective within the actual execution.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's just, whenever I do have filmmakers who come at me and are like, hey, why aren't you covering this, whatever. Like I said, it's just all about, delivering the character, delivering the story. Everybody's on the same playing field. I mean, everybody, I can't lump everybody into, I can't differentiate and go, oh, this filmmaker's better than this film. We're all in the same, we're still all, you guys are all trying to tell stories, and that's a strong part. Now we're seeing, because of distribution models like, with VOD and Netflix and Redbox, we are seeing more independent films hitting the market now more than ever. There's a greater opportunity for independent filmmakers to get their films shown. Are you seeing, any real highlights? I mean, is there anything over the last couple of years that really stood out for you that, said, yeah, this guy's going to have a career or a future?
Well, for me at least, I mean, the thing that kind of got me into making, at least Ritual the way that I made it was I worked for Glass Eye Pix, the, acclaimed New York independent, fiercely independent horror company. And watching them work and watching, them hammer out these movies, these fantastic, different horror films was really kind of inspiring. And the best part about it was they aren't guys, they aren't starving artists in New York just making movies for themselves. They're actually getting big distribution. They've obviously churned out quite a few quality filmmakers. I mean, I think Jim Mickle is one of the best, independent horror filmmakers coming out, of our generation.
Yeah. Brian?
What, you mean like specific titles or?
Yeah,
just
anything,
things?
you know?
Well, I mean resolution. I mean, I was looking before I came here. I was kind of reviewing like your top 10 list and some of the other sites, and like resolution just kept coming up.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, I'm like, you know, I remember I got into an argument with somebody a while back. I can't remember what the movie was, but I was saying, you know, it's an independent movie that's just doing the same thing the Hollywood movies are doing. So it's like you know, you have the license. You know, Hollywood movies kind of have to be normal. They have to appeal to everybody because there's so much money on them. You're not beholden to that. So why are you making the same sort of thing? And they're like, oh, you don't, you know, we have to do this, or we don't get the movie made. And it's just like, or sold. And it's just like, how do you pitch resolution?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like that, I can't, I mean, I watched it like 3 or 4 times and I still wouldn't even know what genre to put it in. I just know it's a horror movie. It's a great horror movie. And that it definitely got out there.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, not to that degree, I mean, in terms of finding that balance of something that speaks to yourself. I mean, obviously, as an artist, you want to protect your own vision, but you also want to make something that's palatable, that people want to see, you know, and hopefully get you more work. You know, I can only imagine that is something that's always weighing on a filmmaker's mind when, especially when they're wading through the independent scene. Yeah, Mickey?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about the thing that's interesting from, you know, from my perspective is that you're right, you do have a lot more license to tell a story differently than you might have to otherwise, because you don't have so many constraints on people footing the bill. But I also feel like the problem is that going back to using that, you know, independent as an excuse, and then the problem that you run into is trying to just imitate what's popular and what's very big. So it's like, the problem is when, you know, a big studio film like The Purge comes out, you know, major distribution makes, you know, $100 million plus. Then next year at AFM, you have 1,000 Purge ripoffs, and so that's the kind of troubling element. Because yes, do you want to make something that sells and gets you to make another film? Absolutely, but I feel like it's so much easier now to poison the well and make a, you know, just a ripoff of a bigger film because it's, you know, very easy to do.
Yeah. Have you guys seen a case over the last couple of years in which an independent movie altered the landscape of a Hollywood film, in which it's the reverse of what you're talking about with The Purge, where The Purge is a Hollywood movie that then laid the groundwork for independent copycats. Have you seen any independent movies that like informed a Hollywood trend?
Well, I mean, I think you know, Blumhouse is probably the king of, you know, of those kind of original Paranormal Activity, of course.
Sure.
That movie completely sculpted the landscape and started a sensation on totally different, or at least a new popular style of filming scary movies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the obvious answer first and foremost. But in terms of, you know, smaller films, I feel like if anybody saw Insidious 2 and didn't say that it was heavily inspired by House of the Devil, I will be, I'll be shocked. I mean, stylistically, there was still those kind of like, even the camera movement, even the way the house looked. I think House of the Devil has trickled its way into a lot of popular films.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, before I would get to your thoughts on that, I'm curious. I mean, something I see is that if an independent film is going to impact Hollywood in any way, it takes a couple years.
Right.
Whereas if it's the reverse, if it's a Hollywood film impacting independent, obviously the independents want to jump on it right away and milk that cash flow.
It also it seems to like take a second one too. Like they kind of want to make sure that it's not just like a fluke, you know. I mean, you could trace that all the way back to, you know, like Halloween. You know, Halloween was a huge hit, but you didn't see a whole bunch of slashers come out that year. You know, the next year it wasn't until 1980, Friday the 13th. And it's like, oh, okay, shit, this is the way we're going. And then that's why 1981, like every week,
it's a huge
there's
boom.
a slasher.
Yeah.
So Hollywood's always a little bit behind. Like by the time they're doing stuff. You know, we're all, you know, us that watch like all this independent stuff and everything, you know, we just feed on it. We're already getting kind of sick of it, you know.
What do you guys think about the independent scene now versus, you know, the Raimi years?
I think back then it was, you know, the roughness and the edginess of those kind of independent films, like, you know, especially Evil Dead, but, you know, Dead Alive.
Yeah.
And even going back to like Coen Brothers' Blood Simple, you know, like the problem is that, you know, when it does get picked up for distribution and when you get a lot more audience input of like people who might not normally see your film, you know, and so that can either be great and you can open up to, you know, people who typically wouldn't watch a film like this, or it could be disastrous because there, you know, especially with the internet, there's a lot more capabilities of presenting opinions and all that. Everyone has a voice now.
And Brian, what do you think? Do you think that independent filmmakers have carry the same energy as they did back in the day?
Well, I mean, I kind of miss. I mean, I wasn't really obviously around then. I couldn't have seen Evil Dead when I was 1 year old, but I kind of miss the idea of like taking a film, like going kind of like city to city and showing it. But I mean, the internet modern equivalent to that, I was thinking like The Battery, where it's just like, you got $5, you can watch the movie. Like he's doing it himself. You go to the site, you download it for $5.
Yeah.
You tell your friends, or you buy it. I mean, it's fine. I bought a few for people that, like for answering trivia questions. you
Yeah,
know?
I think that you're definitely right. I mean, I think the landscape. I don't think the creative energy, has diminished any.
No.
I think it's just the landscape in which people are now trying to find their funding, and as well as trying to get their film out there. Has changed significantly. I think that, and also the other thing too is that it seems now more than ever, like when a studio, especially a studio, Magnolia and IFC, they won't do this, but something like Blumhouse or a Paramount or whomever, they'll grab these little independent movies, and then the journey's not over for the filmmaker. You hear these stories about, oh, we shot some more scenes. The studio gave us some more money to polish it up or put some more stuff. It seems like that versus back in the day. Back in the day, it was just what the filmmakers were up against was censorship. I mean, something got picked up, and suddenly they wanted to cut out all the gore, or like Dead Alive or something like that. So it's definitely evolving, and it's cool. What do you guys think about Kickstarter?
An audience doesn't want to help make your movie. An audience wants to enjoy your film. And so to go, it's almost like panhandling to me. Like if you have a story that if you have a story that you want to tell, you're going to find a way to tell it without having to ask regular Joes on the internet. I mean, that's just my opinion. Kickstarter's worked for a lot of people, but then you get these celebrities like, Zach Braff or Spike Lee, very
Kristen
wealthy,
Bell.
very wealthy celebrities asking, regular people for money. And to me, it seems a little corrupt, and it almost seems a little bratty to me.
Yeah, bratty's a good term for it. I like that.
So,
Brian?
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on it. I mean, obviously has nothing to do with films, but I do like the idea that, and this is mostly what I've done, was, a band, they record their album, and what they're doing, the Kickstarter, to get it pressed to a real physical copy, rather than just have the MP3 download that they'll probably have to settle for because there's no record stores anymore. So that I like, but recently, the last one I did, I never got the damn CD. So, F Kickstarter. No.
Forget the banks, forget asking grandma, whatever. I'm just going to ask the 10,000 followers I have on Facebook or Twitter or whatever.
But I mean, look at we're at this point now. Look at movies by not necessarily a horror film, but like Joe Swanberg or Adam Wingard with Popskull. Those movies cost $10,000 to make.
Right.
And I feel like we're at a level right now where if you have to ask strangers for money, then you're probably going to end up being disappointed by the final product of your film. If you can't find a way to make a movie for what your means, then at the end of the day, what worries me is oh, well, we would have had a lot more money to burn this house down, but we didn't get enough. We should have gone more on Kickstarter.
Yeah. Well, wrapping up, who are some of the independent filmmakers that you're looking forward to seeing more from?
Benson and Moorhead, the Resolution guys.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name, but the guy that made Jugface.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I know Larry Fessenden was a producer on it, but the director, the name is escaping me right now.
Chad Crawford Crinkle?
Yeah, he's got Crinkle.
Crinkle, all right. And Evan Katz, Cheap Thrills.
Yep.
Yeah, Cheap Thrills is great.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love Jim Mickle. I think he's
Jim Mickle,
insanely talented. Ben Wheatley, I think, is a fantastic.
Yeah.
I love every single movie he's made so far. Yeah, I mean, it's Ben Wheatley and Jim Mickle, I think, are the two that I'm the most excited for right now.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, there's, I like the, Benson and Moorhead, Adam Wingard, I like to see him do something. Because I think that Wingard, for me, has been hit or miss, depending on what story he wants to tell. But I think You're Next, which is an independent movie, does wind up getting picked up, was his most accessible, kind of like the way Ty West's The Sacrament, which you guys will be seeing, in theaters this year. That's like his most accessible. So when these guys, I'd like to see them take their sensibilities and apply them to something that's Hollywood or something, a script that's not written by them.
Right.
I'd like to see what they do with it. Take some risks, do some weird shit.
Totally.
Well, guys, don't let any of this deter you. If you want to make a movie, obviously go and make it. Right?
Of course.
We're never putting our foot down on that. Go make your movie. You know, find creative, interesting ways. Give us great characters. Any parting thoughts about independent cinema?
Yeah, just asterisk to that, unless it's a found footage movie about a haunted asylum, because you can't. There's nothing left.
Yeah, no
Move
more
on.
haunted
Anything
asylum
else?
movies,
Yeah.
please.
Haunted school. Haunted school.
Didn't the Japanese explore that real well with that Whispering Corridors
Yeah.
series?
Well, not found footage though.
Yeah, all right,
yeah. So.
The market's ripe for that. We're making it now.
All right, thanks again for tuning in to Choice Cuts, and I'll see you guys next time.